William Wordsworth. The poet William Wordsworth is one of the most important British poets. He was the founder of the Romantic movement of English literature. He was the inventor of a style of writing that was based on emotion and imagination. Wordsworth is also known as the Lakeland poet. Wordsworth is also famous as a nature poet because most of his poems present a close connection between man and nature. He was honored with the title of Poet Laureate of England in 1843. William Wordsworth, life. Wordsworth was born on 7th of April, 1770 in Cockermouth, Cumberland in northwestern England known as the Lake District. He was the second of 5 children born to John Wordsworth, a lawyer, and Anne Cookson. He had 3 siblings. Richard was the eldest, a sister named Dorothy, and Christopher was the youngest. Wordsworth's father frequently encouraged him to read books of Milton, Shakespeare and Spenser from his library. Wordsworth's mother died in 1778 when he was 8 years old, and his father died when William was 13 years old. His mother taught him to read and write. He got his secondary education from Hawkshead Grammar School in Lancashire. For higher studies he entered St. John's College, Cambridge, from where he took his BA degree in 1791. William Wordsworth, life. In 1791 he traveled to France and was fascinated by the Republican movement. In 1792 he had a daughter, named Anne Caroline, from a French aristocratic woman, Annette Vallon. His life's major turning point, when in 1795 he met Samuel Taylor Coleridge. In 1802 he married a childhood friend, Mary Hutchinson, and together they had 5 children. He was appointed official distributor of stamps for Westmoreland. He spent the rest of his life in Rydal Mount, Ambleside. Wordsworth died at the age of 80, due to pleurisy, on April 23, 1850. William Wordsworth. Works. William Wordsworth made his debut as a writer in 1787 when he published a sonnet in the European magazine. In 1793, Wordsworth's first works, An Evening Walk and Descriptive Sketches, were published but received little notice. With Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Wordsworth launched in 1798 a joint publication named Lyrical Ballads, an important work in the English Romantic movement. He wrote several poems, including the enigmatic Lucy poems. In 1805 he finished his masterpiece The Prelude, a long autobiographical poem, written in blank verse, published posthumously in 1850. He produced a collection of poems in 2 volumes, 1807 a collection which includes some of his best poems. William Wordsworth. Other major works: An Evening Walk, 1793, Descriptive Sketches, 1793, Lyrical Ballads, 1798, Lyrical Ballads, with other poems, 1800. This edition contains the famous preface, The Manifesto of English Romanticism. Poems in 2 volumes, 1807, The Excursion, 1814, The Prelude, 1850.
Wordsworth and nature. The beautiful landscape of the Lake District inspired the young Wordsworth. Nature is a common theme and the greater inspiration that can be found in many of his poems, presenting vivid, direct images and descriptions. His poetry present the influences, emotions and sensations which arise while the interaction between man and nature. His main theme in his poems is a poet's response to a natural object. He believed in the idea that man and nature are inseparable. He believed that nature is a source of divine pleasure and joy, and it comforts man in sorrow. Wordsworth. What is poetry? From the preface to Lyrical Ballads, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origins from emotion recollected in tranquility. The emotion is contemplated till by a species of reaction the tranquility gradually disappears, and an emotion, kindred to that which was before the subject of contemplation, is gradually produced, and does itself actually exist in the mind.
Wordsworth. The language and the function of poetry. The language of poetry, the language of poetry is the language of common people. He boldly proclaims that there is no essential difference. The language of prose and that of metrical composition. The function of poetry, according to Wordsworth, poetry is the breath and finer spirit of all knowledge. The impassioned expression that is in the countenance of all science. Thus, the function of great poetry is, to please, to move and to transport.